Hello everyone and welcome to Gel Tip mini painting class. I am Gel Tip. Thursdays in July we're bringing back what we did last year of just these paint alongs, but they're lessons. So this is unlike the other streams. This is a tutorial stream. Um, but it's not a tutorial stream as you might think. Today we're going to talk all about mixing colors and how you can get a more cohesive color scheme for your miniature instead of just picking random colors and sticking them on the miniature. How can you make it look like it belongs there? So we're going to talk a little bit about mixing and kind of what that parent color looks like and working off from there. Last Thursday, we talked about contrast, the temperature contrast, the value contrast, vivid or hue contrast, as well as color contrast. And we'll be talking a little bit about that stuff as well this evening. Now, maybe asking yourself, how are you going to create a 2-hour class with just mixing colors? Well, if you've ever watched my streams before, you would see me do a lot of the mixing as far as colors go. But today is going to be more about me explaining why I'm mixing colors. And I'm going to try to give you a little bit more in-depth view of what goes on in my head as far as when I mix colors so that you could take your colors that you want to do or your miniature and create sort of the same type of effect. Um, so this is a painting stream. We're going to be working on some trees because one of the big mixing colors that I do is wood. I do a lot of browns and yellows, but I kind of stay within two colors. The brown, I pick a brown, a dark brown, and I pick a yellow, and maybe I'll stick some ivory in there as well. So Twitch has rules, bro. You're going to show us what goes on in your head? The head upstairs. Yeah, it's a little chaotic up there right now, but that's what we're gonna do. How you doing tonight, Wampa Dan? How's it going? So, yeah, so that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be explaining to you a little bit about mixing colors and how you can have a full scope of the model. So we'll talk about that stuff, and then just a programming note, I won't be streaming next Thursday. Next Thursday I have off, so next week's Tuesday stream will be lesson 3, which is all about glazing, how you can do a glazing technique and how you can create highlights with it or bring it back to, and some of you seen this Thursday or Tuesday, excuse me, when I start glazing red. And some people have seen it when I glazed blue on the blue dragon wormling. So we're going to talk about the different techniques or different ways you can use glazing. That's next Tuesday, but today is all about mixing colors. So let's get at it. Let's paint. There we go. We got our little wet palette here. And for whatever reason, my little bonus stream here or screen doesn't recognize all of the different audio devices, so hopefully you can hear me and hopefully the music will come through because I had to change those back up after. Again, because this is a class, there will be no raids at the end of the class, and I don't allow incoming raids to come in. So if you're watching me ready to raid in, sorry, that feature has been blocked. And you can always watch the channel. You can always watch for free. Like, there's nothing that you have to do. However, if you do want to ask questions, um, it's only followers and subscribers that can actually ask me questions live. Just make sure that you use that little highlight command so I don't miss anything. I don't have a moderator that's going to ask me questions as I'm going, so I have to look up momentarily. And it is hot down here. I am humid, but it doesn't mean we can't do some painting. So I did some 3D printing over the weekend or a couple days ago. So we got some dead trees. So that's what we're going to be painting up today. We're going to do it a little bit more on the not the I don't want the big healthy brown tree. I kind of want it to be a little bit more muted, so I'll probably end up going a little bit more on the yellowy ivory side of this. But we printed up. Oh, come on, buddy. I'm gonna have to change my. That's new. I thought we took care of that last week. Let me get that right off the bat here. Configure video. Let's take off autofocus. We don't want that. Apply. Good. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So there's my 3D tree I printed out, and then I also printed out this guy. This is another dead tree. So two different types of trees. We'll give it a shot. We'll see what it works out. We'll mix some colors. But I want to talk about mixing colors, like, because some people just don't. They just mix two colors together and then they throw it on, or they go and they find a color to put on the model. What I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about what we did last Thursday, which is this blue lizard folk with some orange fireballs to get that contrast. Remember, this was all contrast. Blue and orange gives you the highest amount of contrast. But I started to do orange down here and I wasn't happy with it. And so I want to change that to be a more muted color. So if I do want to add orange to it later, I can. Or if I want to add blue to it, I can. So how can I do that? I can just go grab a color and throw it on there, but how do I know it's going to actually work with what I want? So I'm going to go back to the blue that I used for the lizard, and I'm going to go back to the orange that I used for the fire. And because those two colors are already there, and those are my main colors that I want people to see, I'm going to end up mixing those and getting a new color. And because this blue is already there, and this orange is already there, it's going to make it more cohesive. It's going to actually fit together the way I want it to. So, how do I mix? Well, I'm going to make sure that I can be on camera. So I'm going to take some orange, and I'm just going to put some right there. And I'm going to take this blue, and then take that there. So when I mix colors, if you do a 1-to-1, now these two colors are very contrasting. Blue and orange contrast. And if I take them both wet and I mix them, what I should get is a brown. If I get it a 50-50 mix, or a very muted color. It's not coming out brown, is it? Looks more green to me. Oh, I probably just didn't have enough orange in there. Now it's coming. So basically, when you mix two complementary colors, or a primary and a secondary, you should end up getting a brown. This is a very green brown. I think because I don't have a true orange, I think this is just sort of. But I can keep mixing in, and the more I mix in, I'll get my brown back. I just don't know how they made the blue, and I don't know how they made the orange. And let's get some music on while we're mixing colors, because we need some good mixing music. So what a good mixing music is, what, disco? Let's do some disco. It's not getting very brown, is it? That's what my goal was. My goal was to get it brown. Maybe I need to add blue to my orange. It is getting there, it's just looking more green. But what we're doing is we're muting out our color by mixing it. We're just going to go with this. Okay. So if I take this color and I just kind of work it in here, what's going to happen is it's going to apply all of that orange that's mixed in and all of that blue that's mixed in. And maybe we have a green. Maybe there is a green that we have that we can use to paint this, and we didn't have to mix it, but we wouldn't have really known. So I'm just going through and I'm painting on this. But because I'm using the two colors that I used before, I know that this green is the one that goes, and it'll be more cohesive down the road. And if I want to add more orange to it, or I want to add more blue, I don't have to worry too much if it's going to actually fit in, because that's the colors I was using. So this looks a little bit more green, and I'm not exactly sure why. It's a muted green. It's not a vibrant green. So it's not going to distract from the blue, and it's not going to distract from the orange having this green in. If I add more color, if I add more orange, or I add like a different color altogether, then it might distract. But because I'm just using the colors I used originally, and then for these pants, I could do those in a different color, or I could do them black, or I could even add more color to this mixture I have already. So let's do that. All right. So there we go. That's from our blue and orange we mixed together, and we could have mixed it again. We can keep mixing it in. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some black, because I believe we used black before. And I'm just going to add some black to this mixture that we did. Making it a little bit darker. I could do it to the blue. I could do it to the orange. I chose to do it to this because it's close here. And then this black right here, mixed in with the two colors, will actually fit better next to these green platoons. Of course, I think that it's a little too thin. But I'm just doing this really quick just to show you, just to show you a little bit about how mixing colors goes, like how I do it in my head when I'm looking at what colors I want to put on. And now, even though that it looks like I have tons of colors on here, really it's just blue, orange, this black and white gray here, this blue and orange mixed to make this green, and then if it wasn't so thin, this is the black and green mixture that we did. So that's how we can mix colors to make things look a little bit more cohesive. You can stick as many colors as you want in, but if you want it to really conform, to look like a solid piece, and if I want to, I could take this orange now and put it on the front here, although it's a little wet right now, and it shouldn't be too stark. I have to wait for it to dry, but if I want to highlight this green right here, I can just add some of that orange and it makes a nice natural highlight. Of course, you can't see it because it's a little wet. I'm kind of rushing through. It's a little humid down here, so things are going to take a little bit longer to dry. But I could have gone in and just stuck with a green, but if I put on a green like this, you know, that's going to just make it look too... It's going to be competing with the orange or the blue. So we don't want to do that. We want to do it in such a way that our green is not going to compete with the colors that we want. Could do the same thing with this guy. He has the dark green. Remember, this is the black green from Monument Hobbies. I don't know where that is at the moment, but if I find it, we'll use it. And then this is the red from Monument Hobbies. So that is... So I could make all of this middle stuff in here, or I could have made this right here, which I think I did maybe. I don't remember how I... Or I can go somewhere completely different and do that. Like, I could probably do it on his armbands if I wanted to. So let's see. Do we have some red? We do. Do we have some black green? That is the question. Black, green, where are you? I got the blue black. There it is. No, it's dark gray. I can't see with my glasses. Aha! I found it. So, we'll take some of this red. And we'll take some of this green. This black green, which is just a very dark green. And then what I could do is I could take a little bit of the red and add in a little bit of the dark green. Mix it all together. And I get this like dark maroony gray color. And if I take this and throw it onto his bracer, I get this very dark maroony color, but because it's made with the green and the red, it will make it a little bit more cohesive. And then I can highlight it with white, or I could bring it back in some red. Maybe you have a dark maroony color of this already. Maybe you don't. But this is what mixing does for you. It allows you to create this color system that, I don't want to say it's a limited palette, because you can keep mixing, and I'm going to show you different styles of mixing, but I can go all the way up his arm here if I want to. But because of this green and red being mixed together, and because it's already there on the model, it's not going to be as competitive with the colors I want. You still get that red coming through. I could take this, and if I wanted to, I could go in all of these little recesses in here and wash in here. I can rim this right around with this new color I made. So there's all kinds of things that you can do with mixing these colors together. Now, the beauty of mixing is that I don't have to stay with this one color. It doesn't have to be one-to-one. So for example, I could take a dot of red, or I can take 2 dots of red, or I can take 3 dots of red, right? And then I could take, if I wanted to, 3 dots of green. We'll do 1 dot of green here to get more red in there. Do 1 dot of green here to get even more red. Right? If I did 2 dots of green and 2 dots of red, that's kind of what we have over here. And I could take 1 dot of green. Make sure I can get a dot of green. And I can make 4 dots of red. Let me get this dot of green just a little bit bigger. There we go. Doesn't want to stay. Okay, so then what I can do, I'm actually using my paintbrush to mix, and you should really just have a mixing brush. But if I wanted to, I can mix all of these colors, and that's the color I get there, right? I can mix these colors, and it looks a little bit of a different shade. And these are just complementary colors because they mute out the 2 colors that we used before. So there you go. You've got now 4 brand new colors. Now, is it possible that you have those colors in your repertoire? Sure. Games Workshop, Reaper Paints, Army Painter, Vallejo, all of those large paint companies, they do the mixing for you. You just have to go and figure out which blends go with for the mini that you want. But they go ahead and they do all this. Those companies that use high pigment or single pigment, like Monument Hobbies and Chimera, and I think Scale 75, a little bit more mixing is done with those colors to get the shades that you want. So you'll see that's why a lot of artists, a lot of painters like those minimal selections, where the average or the beginner painter, they like the assortment. So once you can figure out which colors you need, you can use any of the paints. You know, can I find this particular brown, this maroon brown? Probably somewhere down the line. You know, one of these could be a corn red from GW. You know, here's corn red. Might look like one of those colors. So that's mixing. You can get whatever kind of shades you want. This is just the 1-for-1 right here, and I can go ahead and we'll just do that. We'll just put it in there. But if I do this, now it makes this shield not so different. Like, it's not out there. It looks like it goes with this miniature because I've got that red in there now. And the red is what I used on the actual lizard. It's not a new red. I didn't use a different darker red to do this. I mixed the red and this dark green together. and you can totally see the difference. You know, now I could, like I said, I could find a color that does this for me, or I can just mix it and be done with it. So it's up to you. But that's kind of how mixing works. And that's what I'm going to be doing from here on out. Now, I can use a different, like if I want to add some orange to this red, I can add in that new orange. I don't have to go find an orange. I can just take my orange that I have somewhere and then add some red in, and now I can make a new color using that red that I have. So when you use a red, so I'm using the red and I'm using the green to make certain colors on here. We call the red a parent color. And you can go ahead, and as long as you keep using that red, the parent color is somewhere in the miniature, and it kind of blends it. It kind of brings it all together. And that's what we want. I'm not using different reds to do different spots. I'm using the one red, but I'm using different colors and mixing in different colors. Now I could take that yellow we used for the rope and stick it into this highlight of the lizard. But if I want, like I use this orange, so I'll just kind of do like his fingers here. And I know I'm not using my magnifiers yet. I will on the scales. And then I could take this orange again and mix it into that color again. And I'm just adding in some orange, and then I'll just kind of paint it again. And eventually it just kind of blends in nicer instead of adding just some generic orange in and not making it look like it belongs. Right? Because how many times have you added a color and it's so striking that you're like, oh, that was a mistake. I don't want to do that. That doesn't look right at all. Of course, even if you did with white, even if you did it with white, it would be too stark, right? So I'm going to take a little bit more of this orange, add it into this mixture. So now it's like 3 oranges, 1 red. And I'm going to just go ahead and do some of the scales here. And I'm going to leave some of that yellow or some of that red underneath. And what I could do is take some of that dark green that we used, right? I could take some of that dark green, maybe 4 reds and 1 dark green, right? 4 reds and 1 dark green, which is right there. And I could make it a shadow, a darker red, using that green and red. So if I take this, remember this was my 4 reds and 1 dark green, and then if I use it, I can make a little shade here on the tail. And it's such a subtle shade. See, it's such a subtle shade that you don't even notice it. And that's because the parent color is still there. That red is still in there. Alright, so what happens if I use that yellow I used on the rope? Which I think is this right here. Which I think is more tan than anything. So if I decide to add that to this mixture here, was that the yellow I used? I don't think that was the yellow I used. I think I was right when I said I used the yellow ochre. If I can find the yellow ochre. That's the issue. I found the yellow ochre. Yeah, that's the color I used right there. So I'll take this color we just used for some of those scales. I'll add in a little bit of yellow. See how it brightens it up? So I've added in a new color now, the ochre yellow, but because I've already used some of this mixture and doing these scales, it's all going to flow together as one cohesive color scheme. And that's the beauty of mixing colors, because it doesn't. And then again, you can always add black and white to things to darken them, to lighten with white. So I think that's the whole beauty of mixing colors. And when you see me painting and you watch me just dip in certain places, it's because I'm just trying to use the colors I have on the palette, and I'm trying not to go to outside sources. Sometimes I'll go to an outside source just to get more accentual colors, but this yellow ochre that I used is really already on the miniature right there. So it's not like out of the realm of possibility that I'm using that. What I could do is start using some white to really brighten that up. But again, as it's important that that red is in all kinds of places. So it's in the creases here, the darkness here. So is the green, by the way. The green is also in these creases. It's just that I mixed it with the red. Remember, I mixed that dark green with some gray? We used black, white, and a little bit of that green. And that's how I made these muted colors up here. But that's still the same green as the hair and as the shield. So when I look at it, it's really just, now with the addition of the orange, I've got red, green, black, white, yellow ochre, and orange. And those are really all the colors I need. And then you can just mix and match, adding more parts of one, less parts of the other. And then the same thing here. So this is a little bit drier now. So as you can see, here's my little muted green. It's darker. If I want to go in with the orange like I wanted to before, I can go in. And this orange will actually look nice with this green because this green was made with this orange. So if I used a different green altogether, this orange may clash and not really work well with this green. And so because we mixed this green, this muted green, can even do like a little rim right around. And so now that's kind of where it is. I mean, obviously we do a little bit more, but because the parent colors are blue and orange, this muted green is made from those. And if I was using pure orange and pure blue, I'd probably get a brown. But there you go. That's what that looks like. Hey, JP got rockets. Mutant colors? I guess we could call them mutant colors. How you doing? No, doing a little class on mixing colors. Just how we could take two two contrasting colors between blue and orange and make a brand new color, so that if I shaded it with a blue, or I put orange or blue anywhere on it, it's going to go together, as opposed to if I took just any type of green. See how that green is more muted than this green here? This green probably would not work because it would be competing for color. Really, I just want the orange to be the popping color here. So I did a dark blue, and then this is a muted green here, which is the muted versus the vibrant. That's another contrast we talked about last year. Always be yourself, unless you can be a lizardman firebender. That's right, or a fire lizard. So that's mixing colors. And my challenge for you is take three colors that you enjoy, whether they be the three primary colors or two complementary colors and an extra, and try yourself some mixing and see what kind of miniature color scheme you can come up with for that. Black and white is always an option because those are value colors. They're not really shade colors. So I'm just talking about more of the shade color stuff. I can see how the muted green works well with the orange. Yeah, it's because that's what we made. Now, I thought we would be making brown, but we didn't. We made it green instead. And like I said, you may already know of a color that this matches after you mix it. I mix colors all the time and say, well, that's corn red, or that's ice blue, or whatever color I might be making at the time. So, okay. So remember, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into chat with the highlight message. Make sure that you're a follower of the channel, and I will try to answer any questions I possibly can about mixing. Okay. I want to start working on a dead tree here. And like I said, I want to go more on the yellowy ivory side. So the one color I want is the yellow ochre. It's a very muted yellow. And I think what I'm going to try to do here is go with a burnt sienna. And usually I go with mahogany, and then I add in my yellow ochre. But because I want this to be a dead tree, we're going to bring some ivory into the mix. So there's my three colors that I'm going to try to use on the tree. And just for in case I need it, I am going to use a little bit of black, which I do not seem to have at the moment. Well, I will find it. I will find it. I know I have it somewhere. Black is always my friend, and so is there we go. I got it. So black is just that color, that value color, and I will also have white in case on hand if I need it. But we're gonna start mixing now. In order to mix, I need to have. It's more of an ochre at this point. Yes. It is more of an ochre at this point. So I'm going to actually, when I mix, I'm going to do everything I usually do, but it's going to be a little bit more audible so you can hear the thought process. But I'm going to try to get as many shades as I can out of here. So I just want to make sure that everybody can see. So the one thing I don't do, or I'm not going to do in the class, is talk about parts, how you can mix certain parts, like 4 parts of this, 3 parts of this. Um, I usually just go by shades if I think it looks light enough or different enough. Um, I know it doesn't do well for recipes. Most people like, oh, I need a recipe, I need parts. But because these are just one-off trees, I don't have to really worry about the recipe. Now, if I was doing a lot of these, and I was doing them on different days or different times, then there's a chance that, yes, I really do want a recipe. So I will make sure I know how many parts are in what part. But I do want to show you that this color here, so here's my yellow ochre. See how it's a little shade darker? And this is just adding a little bit of gray to it, or black to it, or maybe even some burnt sienna. We'll see. But I might be able to make Baylor brown just using some yellow ochre and some burnt sienna. So let's go ahead and start mixing some colors here. So I'll start off with 3 of these and 1 of these. Mix it in there. It gets me one of those. And then I can take some of that color and mix it in here. That looks like a different shade altogether. Then I can take some of this, some more yellow, touch of ivory, a little more ivory, okay. And one thing we didn't do is we didn't do yellow ochre and ivory together. That makes a whole brand new color. Now, each one of these colors that I mixed has a little bit of the yellow ochre in it. So the yellow ochre is what we call the parent color. Hey, Hecatone, how are you doing? What's going on tonight? So all of these colors outside of the burnt sienna and the ivory all have this yellow ochre. So the yellow ochre is my parent color. And so since this tree is already prime black and stuff, we're just going to go right in with the burnt sienna. So let's go in, grab some burnt sienna, and let's just get all that burnt sienna right on there. And as we go, we have all of those other shades that we can stick onto this tree. And because all of these were made either by the burnt sienna or the yellow ochre, it's all going to end up looking cohesive. So hopefully I've explained a little bit about how to mix color, what the parent color is. And if you do this, remember I'm only using 3 colors, maybe some black, maybe some white down the road, but really it's just 3 colors. But look at how many colors I have on my palette. I have 8, so I can go 8 plus the black and the white gives me 10. Look at that. So you don't need to have a lot of paint to put something out there. If you want to do icy theme, try blue, purple, and white. Try your different shades of those colors. Remember last week we said one should be dark and one should be bright? So you can do a nice icy blue with a deep purple, Do a dark blue with a light purple. Add white for shade. And because now here's the problem without doing parts is that if any of these things dry or I need to touch something up, I don't have the recipe to touch it up. So it's all just a feel. But the hope is that everything will look similar enough that it's just going to look natural. Now remember, when we said nature is organic, and organic means random. So to do some of these trees, it may not need to be exact or precise like an armor, right? If you do an armor 1 red, you need to make sure you're using that same shade of red, or else it's going to look patchworky. But if you have the mother color in there, or the parent color I should say, not mother color. But if you have that parent color in there, then it should be fine. And I'm not really, I know I'm getting, I'm trying to get everything on this miniature, and some of it's a little bit more thinner than other areas. And that could be just taken up by a different color, or it's creating some shadows. So it's really just kind of a thin paint that I'm getting on here. So this, if you want to know where this falls in from last year, this is us just putting on our base color, right? This is just color blocking. Just painting on the brown. And if I want, I can even darken this burnt sienna down to this down here, so it's a little bit darker. But there we go. That looks like a tree. It's funny because I'm doing this quick, and then all of a sudden my brush hits a branch. I'm like, oh, please don't break. These are 3D printed, by the way. If anybody was asking, these are 3D printed. This isn't by a miniature company. I just found it online. Trying to remember who makes it. I should probably know that when I stream of who makes these trees. And then this is another generic tree that I got off an STL that I printed out. And this one, because the yellow is in all of these, I think I'm going to go with the yellow on this one. I'm just going to start off with yellow. Now, is there a reason why I'm starting off with yellow? Nah. I think it's just because everything else has a yellow in it, and I don't want to go from dark to light. I'm just going to go and add in shades to this one. Of course, I didn't do a good job cleaning this one off, but oh no, maybe that's just a leaf. I thought it was something that one of those supports that I forgot to sand off, but it looks like it's just like a dead leaf or a dead bird or something. I don't know what the could also be a defect. Could also be a defect. Hey, you're not supposed to be splattering. That's for a different technique altogether. That's a whole different class right there. So my hope is that each of these trees will be sort of similar. when they get done in color. One might be lighter though. I felt like, what can I do that's easy to show off some mixing that people can do and practice on, and they don't have to worry if they mess up because it's all just organic anyway. And I'm like, oh, how about a dead tree? Can you really mess up a dead tree? I guess if you make it green, no, not green, that would just make it a live tree. I guess if you made it a blue, but then it would be an alien tree. Maybe it's an alien dead tree. Very exciting class. We're watching Gel Tip paint something one color. Hey, that's why I got the lizards out, so you could see how the mixing process goes. I never said that miniature painting was quick and dirty. It's just dirty. You have to be willing to think out of the box in certain points and trying new things. And maybe mixing is one of those new things that you could try. So between Thursday's class last week and our mixing class this week, you should have a plethora of knowledge to go and figure out what color schemes you want and how to get all of your blocking colors on. And then we'll take it one step farther. I'll show you glazing Tuesday. And then when we come back Thursday, the 28th, I think it is, or maybe it's the 27th, the last Thursday of the month, we will talk about some extra details that you can add to personalize your miniature. I think I'm gonna borrow some from here. So the only problem with doing trees is that, especially these trees, is that it's so random what direction these branches are that I have no idea what I'm catching, what I've missed. But what's nice is that while I'm struggling with this one, the other one is drying, so we'll get to the other one. There's a good chance I'm not going to finish both of these trees tonight, but hopefully you'll see the mixing in process. Just to give everybody a heads up, there will be no raid tonight. I don't allow raids in for the classes. But I will save these videos for... They'll be up on Twitch for a while, but I will try to save them, download them, and put them on the YouTube channel so that you have those when you want them. I'm not really making tutorial videos. I'm more or less just doing this as a paint along so that you guys learn some techniques that I use, and if you want to try it, like I said, this is just an intermediate painting lesson for beginners. Some of you probably already do this and don't even know that you're doing it. And some of you may just say, hey, you know, I really needed that one green or one brown. Now I know how to mix it. I just need to figure out how to mix the colors. Maybe you want to go to the game store and get a color and you don't know what to get. Mix two colors to find out. Alright. I see one area that I need to get. Which is right there. There's probably a few areas I need to get, but we'll get those afterward. And if I did a glazing class beforehand, I could just highlight all this and then glaze it down. That would be also a viable option, but we're still mixing colors as we do stuff. So people ask me all the time, how do you do your woods? How do you do your wood grains? It's just a mix of browns and yellows. That's how we got things that look like this. It's just a dark brown with added yellow ochres at different levels. And so it just kind of makes it look a little bit more wood-like. Alright. You see my little splatter of the... Alright, so we're going to set this off to dry now. And since we started with this color here, maybe we'll use this color right here. And we'll start adding some highlights. And again, I'm not really worried too much at the moment about being neat with this. I just want to get some high spots here. So, and if you notice, this color is really not going to affect this burnt sienna because it already has some burnt sienna in it. So I could just sit here and highlight all of these little branches, and then at some point when you're looking at it, it's just going to all kind of come together. So when you're looking at it like this, see? So right now I'm not highlighting, I'm not worried about highlighting, or I'm just trying to get some colors on here. We'll worry about highlighting afterward. We just want to get some of these extra colors on here, so it, because wood is not, a tree is not all just one type of brown. It's got multiple layers of brown. And so for us, as long as we can keep that burnt sienna going in there. And what the other thing that you're doing here is each time I add in one of these colors, it's got a little bit of that yellow ochre. So by the time I get up to the yellow ochre part of this, it's not going to be as stark of a change. If I was to add yellow ochre here now, you would see a whole like color shift, and your eyes would go right to that yellow ochre. But by the time I get to the yellow ochre from all of this mixing, it's not even going to be that pronounced. You'll see it, but it's going to blend in much better. And that's really what you want with mixing colors, is you want that easy blending of sorts. And I don't have to use just lighter colors. Sometimes you can, if you want to darken a cloak, if you want to do a color shift, you could technically go and do wash black over it successive times like a glaze, and you can make two colors. I'll show you a piece that I showed. So someone wanted to color shift two colors on one of their armors or cloaks or dresses. I don't remember, but I'll show you. And it's more glazing than it is, but it's also mixing colors. So I'll show you that in just a second. I'm just making sure. And as this dries, it'll get darker, but there you go. That's kind of what that looks like so far. So we'll let that dry off. Let's see. Is he here? Yeah, he's right here. So you can take, like, you know how I said you can make something icy? Well, you could take like blue and purple and you can mix those colors and you can get these in between colors. So you can go from a dark purple all the way to a light blue. And if you just keep successfully mixing in those colors, you'll get this nice gradual shade from dark purple to light blue. Now there is glazing here, and this is one of the things that I will show off. But before we do this, we need to know how to mix colors, which is what today's lesson is all about. So I'll show you how to get those gradients using glazes and mixing. We already know most of that stuff, but okay, so again, nothing really difficult here. We're just kind of randomly throwing stuff out there. So now I'm going to do the same thing, but with this other color. Now this still has that burnt sienna in it, but it has a little bit more of that yellow. And so we'll be a little bit more controlled where this goes. So maybe we'll just start here at the top. So now if that looks a little too stark, then what you can do is take a little bit more burnt sienna, which I don't have any right now. Right? So we started with the burnt sienna, and if that's too stark, you just take some of the burnt sienna and you mix it back in. Till you get a color that doesn't look so stark. So now we're adding a new color. Again, it's just all random. There is no reason where I'm going with this highlight. I'm just randomly sticking in this color because I just feel like it needs this color in certain areas. The reason why it looks like it belongs in certain areas is because it's all got that burnt sienna in it. And as it dries, it just kind of blends together, right? So here's that side, here's that side. So you're getting more depth with this. Now if I wanted some green, you could just take any green that you want, as long as you mix it into all of this brown. So like down here where these vines are, even though that the green will be different, I may not want it to be different. Maybe it just needs to match this brown here. So I'm just kind of taking this and just hitting certain areas. Doesn't matter where I'm hitting it. Eventually, it'll look like it belongs because I have that one color consistent. Now, can I go and find a brown that does exactly what I'm doing here? Of course you can. Of course you can. You just have to go find it. I don't know what color that is, so I mixed it. There we go. And I'll look up on top here. Maybe some top All right, so that takes care of that. So what I'll do now is I will take a smaller brush, and that original color that I thought might have been too striking, I'm just going to go ahead and start adding that color in. And then it won't be as striking because I have that medium color to back it up. But again, I don't know how many times you want me to say, I chose the tree because it's organic, it's random, and it's a great practice for all of this blending. I'm sure you could find other miniatures out there that would do just the same. And I know it looks like, oh, this guy knows where he's applying this. I really don't. I don't really know where it's going. All I know is it keeps matching where I want it to go. The only way you can go wrong in this is if you actually physically try to paint in the highlights where they're supposed to go. That's not the way nature is programmed. It's how man-made stuff is programmed. So if you want this to be an inorganic tree, you can go ahead and start making things pop and be precise with your highlights. I don't want to show off the other side yet, because what you're seeing right now is the wet paint, and it looks very bright and vibrant. And when I show you the other side, it's going to dull right down because it's dry. Okay, so there's that tree, and then if I look at this side, see, it looks so different, right? So here's the yellow, that color we did, looks pretty bright and spot, you know, like, looks like it's really kind of coming out, and then when it dries, there you go, it doesn't seem like there's anything there. Now, let's see. Do I want to do more yellow? Let's see what this yellow does. This is a little bit of the ivory now, right? So it's that mixture plus the ivory. And so when you have a decaying tree, it tends to go more on the yellowy white side. So we'll see how bright this ends up being. But as long as I don't remember where I hit, everything's gonna kind of come together down the road. And this may be too bright at this time. Maybe you don't want it to be this bright. We don't really know until we see what the dry product looks like afterward. See, I want some of that darkness to keep showing through, because that really makes it look decaying. So this is actually going on a diorama piece. So as soon as I get it completed, I will post it in the mixing channel, which I think I forgot to make in Discord, but that's where it will be. And again, if it's too bright, right? So I could take this color that I think is too bright and I can add in a little bit more of this color here that we started to use, and it'll tone it down a bit. Whoops. And you just kind of rotate it until you see where. Now, if I think that I need to go darker somewhere, like let's say I have too much yellow here and I don't like that, I can just add in some color. Not color, but I can add in some of the browns that we've been using before, and it'll tone it right down so that you don't get, you know, like maybe I want a little bit more of this sienna color right here, and then maybe I want some black. Let's get some black in here. So here's some burnt sienna, and remember we had that black primer that we put the burnt sienna on. So that's nothing more than just adding black and burnt sienna, and then you can just get that in there. That in there, see? It just kind of adds to the shadowing. If you don't like certain spots, you're like, oh, you know, I don't like how that highlighted, so you just kind of, you know, maybe you don't like all of that highlight in there, but it's mixing the color. And then if this becomes not yellow enough, you just take it and we add in some yellow that you want, or this mixture, whatever this is. So that's the beauty of mixing colors. You can just, and you can practice it. Now, I'm doing it on a tree. I know it's doing practice on more stricter minis, but you can take this. So mixing colors is how they do non-metallic metals. They just take those grays and those yellows and browns, or those, you know, blacks and whites, grays and blues, and they just start mixing in there where they need their color. And so if you're looking at doing some non-metallic metals, it's always nice to know how to mix your shades. And sometimes it's random, and sometimes it's purposeful. Have someone trying to raid you, but they're getting a notification. Yeah, I don't. Since I'm doing classes. Good evening, sir. You aren't accepting raids? No. When I'm doing the classes, I don't accept the raids. Because I'm too busy explaining things, and so I don't usually stop for raids and stuff like that. I kind of shut everything down when I'm doing classes. The only thing I have open is for questions. So that's why I'm not accepting raids. I apologize. And I also don't raid into anybody after class. I'll give you people to raid into or that you can go to, but usually when I'm doing a class, it's just mostly all of this. So I apologize. All right. So now we have this. Since we have some yellow and we have some ivory, I can go right to the bright yellow now. Remember, we mixed the ivory in here. And then again, I can just kind of put the highlights anywhere I want. I don't want to totally lose everything that I just did, but it is a dead tree. And we want it to be sort of dead looking, right? So it's got to fade out the color. You don't want a lot of that brown in there, but you want a lot of the again, you don't want it to be so stark that the bright yellow kind of bleeds through the brown. So all of this is just going to kind of look more natural as it gets to be whiter and brighter. Okay, and do it again. See how it's starting to become less and less alive. Less and less alive. Again, just randomly picking out some high spots. Just not really caring where the highlights are falling. That's the beauty of doing trees and rocks, right? Anything in nature, everything is natural and unnatural at the same time. So randomness is what you want. But you want controlled randomness. You don't want to just, I don't want to dry brush this because dry brushing will leave a texture that I don't think is on trees. And I do the same process on rocks. I'll mix in my ivories and my whites and my dark grays, and I'll just dry brush. So you just have to kind of look at the piece and say, where do I need some of that color? Going around. Now we see we're missing some right here. Now, it's all coming together because everything here has yellow ochre in it. There's outside of the first layer of burnt sienna, everything has yellow ochre. Now, this last coat that I'm using has a little bit of ivory, right? So technically I can now start using ivory to do things with, and it will go and blend in with everything I'm using, because now there's ivory in this mix too. And it's hard to believe that all I used so far was the burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and ivory. We did add a little bit of the black just to kind of fix some stuff up. Alright. So, speaking of ivory, I don't want pure ivory, that would just be bad, but I want enough ivory in there so I get sort of a bright muted yellow. And if you notice, it doesn't really overpower the yellow that we used before. Because we've already been using ivory, right? We just didn't have it be the predominant color. There we go. Hey, Lady Kashira, thank you for following. How are you doing today? So basically, all I'm doing is finding some generic places to highlight. I'm not really trying to, I'm being a little bit more controlled where I go with it. I'm not going all over the tree. But you do kind of want that deadness going on. So I will hit it in certain places. Looks like I'm dry brushing, but I'm really not. And it all looks like it goes together only because I've been using all of these colors the entire time. Now, you may say, well, I think that over here it just doesn't look natural. So maybe you want to do a little bit of burnt sienna and black in these areas. You may want to dry brush in certain areas, like maybe this needs a little bit more lighted spot. Maybe down here you want this to be nice and dark because nothing's hitting that. Right? So that is the beauty of mixing. So we took something that was pure black and we took something that looked like that and created this, right? And you can just go ahead and keep on mixing colors as much as you want to get the color you want. Maybe it's too yellow for you. Maybe you don't want to go. Maybe you just want burnt sienna and ivory. So here's a different tree altogether that we painted up with just the yellow ochre, and I can use all of the colors that I was using before to get this, but I may want to go a little bit more on the white side with this, so we'll see how that works. But you can start to see some of the effects in here. Now this is only the blending thing. I haven't done any of these details. I haven't done any of these down here. And I could do these white. I could do these green. I don't know. I would have to look to see. Maybe they're red. So, and the question is, if I do green, like if I did the green, I would mix green with the burnt sienna, and I would just get them in there because it is part of the figure, and I would want the cohesiveness. But that's what that looks like. So let's see how it works if I start with a white, or excuse me, a yellow, and I want to work up to white. So basically, here is my bright yellow that I used, and here is a brighter yellow, right? And so maybe I use yellow ochre and I use more of this. So I take this mixture right here and I add in more ivory, right? So now not only do I have this, the color that's on here, but I have 1, 2, 3 more colors to go to. And I could do this color here because this has ivory in it as well. Since this turned out to be part of the other tree, this has some ivory in it, but it's a little darker than what I started with. And so technically what I could do is I could just add this color in here to all these creases. And it'll give me some texture that way. If this is too similar, I can always add it to this mixture right here and create some shadows here. As the trick here is making sure that the yellow ochre, is in everything that I do on this particular tree. In other words, you don't want to go pure. So if I go sienna, I'll show you what sienna does. If I just go pure sienna down here, see how stark that is? And it makes it look unnatural. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do is start with some yellow and get the yellow in there. This won't be as stark, and you'll still get the effect that you're looking for with the shadow. And so remember, we want the parent color in everything. And the yellow ochre is our parent color here. So we want that. So if you're going to do shadows, make sure that you're doing the parent color in there. And see, it doesn't look so out of place like this did over here. So we'll have to bring that back. But I'm not going to go straight up to the yellow ochre. I'm going to bring in my other colors to bring that back. Because nature is organic, organic is random, so let's just be random. Alright. So I'm going to grab my bigger brush here. And I'm going to start off with doing a little bit lighter yellow on places. And I know it looks like I'm dry brushing, but I'm not. I'm just doing some high spots. Again, I'm not really trying to control where my highlights fall. I'm just trying to get some lighter color on here. By the time it dries, it won't even look like I did anything. we all know. We all know. And let's see. Keeping a little bit of that darkness in there. We will. Let's see. Let's get over here. So if you're looking to do something randomly, if you're trying to practice stuff, there's a lot to be said for rocks and trees and shrubbery. There's a lot of practice that one can do where they can just practice. This is all practice right now. I'm not being controlled at doing anything. I'm practicing my mixing and making sure that things are looking the way they need to look. A lot of people do mixing on the miniature itself, and that's a way to go. It's not that there's any wrong way to mix. Just make sure the whole point of this is that you're using that one color in everything that you mix. So see that little what do you call it? Burnt sienna fiasco, almost gone. Okay. Let's see, let's get some lighter yellow in here. And we'll do the same thing. Just kind of basically what we did on the other tree. Just hitting some spots that you want to hit and throw some texture in there. Again, because it's a dead tree, it's supposed to be the void of color. Not so much the void of color, but you really kind of want the white factor in there, the very pale brown, the pale yellow. Right, so that's what's going to make it dead, just the color, the muting of the color, and that's really what you're doing. You're just using a muted yellow or a muted brown to signify that this is not really alive. And because there's ivory in this yellow, by the time we do get to ivory, it's not going to look out of place. So, get some of this and some more ivory. I'm starting to run out of my paint mixtures. So this tree is probably the hardest tree because it just has so many directions to it. So you have to kind of pick the direction you like the best. And I think that's what I'll do for the next 20 minutes is just pick the direction I want to go. Time to do the second layer ink, but hopefully manage to pull a super thick layer. But how are you doing there, Gel Tip? By the way, I love how your tree is popping up. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so hopefully everybody's starting to understand how to mix colors and how I do stuff when I'm painting. But thank you so much. I hope you don't get an extra thick layer of ink either. So this is a much brighter yellow. It's not pure ivory yet. And you can start to see how, again, just being random in certain places. Maybe it's not quite fully dead yet. A lot of times people will take the ivory and then they'll start washing down. But I feel like you ruin the upper areas when you start washing down. And you technically, once you get the layers that you want highlighted, you could take a very thin yellow ochre and glaze everything down. But I'm not a big fan of washing and then coming back with the light color again, because what you start doing is creating these layers. And this is kind of now turned into like a dry brush because I'm starting to run out of paint, and it is a little, whoops. And it is a little humid down here, so well, I've got a dehumidifier down here, so it is drying out my wet palette. So it's looking like it's more of a dry brush. I'm trying not to, though. I'm just trying to randomize where I want color, or where I don't want color, I should say, because it's a dead tree. And so again, because this tree has so many different areas to it, like, you know, there you go, there's the yellow part of the tree. Working on my bear cavalry. Oh, nice. Nice. Those will be awesome to see. So now that I've got the bright yellow on there, if I decide that I want to go to my ivory, just pure up ivory, right? I can do it, and it's not going to be so stark with all the other colors because I've already got the ivory in there. I've built up. So see, I can just do the ivory part of this and really make this look like it's been out in the sun, dead for a long time. Just by adding a little bit of this ivory to certain places. Again, because it's nature, it's going to be all random where it goes. But I'm just trying to hit these fingers right here. And then eventually you have to take a step back and you have to say, okay, where do I need to start blending? Where do I need to remove color? Alright, so remember all this was a nice shade right there? We can keep that shade. Just come back down with our bright color, our ivory. And if that doesn't work for you, if you think that that is just too ivoryish, we go back in and we tone it down a bit. So we went from something that looks sort of like that to something that looks like this, and we're still going with this. And then we also have this guy here. It came out pretty good. I mean, we still have, I mean, you could still blend and stuff. Be right back, letting the wash set on the model. And if I wanted to, I could go back. I'll give you a preview of Tuesday's lesson, but I could take some of the original burnt sienna and really thin it down. I'll add a little bit of the dark. Make sure that I have a very nice thin coat. Get rid of the moisture so that the only thing on there is the paint itself, and then you can go ahead and tone everything down as much as you want. So even if I don't like something on here, I know what colors I used. I may not be able to pick up the right mix as I did before, but the point is that as long as I'm using the yellow and the ivory, right? As long as I'm using those colors, then I should be able to go in here and just make it work the way I want it to work. And this is part of fixing mistakes that you may have thought you made. Perhaps I don't like this oranginess that I just put in there with the yellow. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put some ivory with that yellow. And I'm just going to start building back up. And if you do it, if you hit it on certain areas, even where you have the ivory, it'll start blending back in. And that's what mixing does, is it allows you to blend and make things a little easier down the road. So if I hit not only the spots that I messed up on, but if I also hit some of the ivory spots, it kind of all starts to work again. And we can start bringing it back to what it was before. I'm going to need more ivory, I think. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Just highlight the questions so I see them. Other than that, I think that's the mixing lesson that I wanted to come across. Hopefully everybody has enjoyed, followed along. Maybe you're painting something of your own volition that you want to mix colors now. I would say give it a shot. You can take any two colors, any colors you think that don't go together, mix them together, and you will find that you can get a nice cohesive piece, even if you think they're the most ridiculous colors you can come up with. I bet you could paint anything to a high quality by just mixing those colors and getting different shades. Don't forget about the white. Don't forget about the black to give you some value in your colors, which is what I think I'm missing in this one. I have a feeling that I need to go on the darker side, the black side of the yellow. Let's see. Let's give it a shot, shall we? So I mixed in some yellow, mixed in some black, just adding some of this in here. Again, it's mixing that yellow. If you mix the yellow, it doesn't really... Let's just get a little more yellow in there. That black is not going to matter. Right? So if I want shade, I can just do shade down here. If I want the shade in here, Maybe I just do the black in there. Do the black in here. Does that work? Let's see. Let's put some black in here. Let's maybe I was using too much yellow. Maybe I wanted black and white, or ivory I should say. I think the yellow just makes it look more alive, and that's not what I really wanted. I think this is what, I think I wanted to mix the black in. Because it seems to be toning down some of that yellow. Yeah. That's what I wanted. I wanted the black in there. I was using the ivory, and I think I wanted the black. So let me just quickly show off. If I use this yellow, I use this black right here. So I'm making this nice muted dark yellow shade, and I get right in here, and I get right in here, and I get right in here. So what I was trying to do is use the yellow as my shade, and it wasn't working. What I want is this nice dark. So I just mixed a little bit of black with the yellow. And look at how that just kind of shades everything down. Alright. And if I want to go a little deeper, just use a little bit more of the black. Now, is there a color out there that matches this? Probably. But the point of this is that it's just yellow. I've used yellow in the ivory, I've used yellow in the black, and it will make it a more cohesive looking miniature. Okay, so let's review. We mixed blue and orange, and we got this little green right there. Because the blue and the orange mixed to make that muted green color, my orange is still the vibrancy on the model outside. Once I get these white things out of here, that's what you'll focus on. Notice that I can highlight the fire on here orange, and it goes with this green. Why? Because orange is already in this green, this muted green color. So that's why I'm able to put the orange on there and it looks fine. Normally, if you try to put orange on green, it doesn't look fine. So we mix those colors up, and then you can't see it because it's too thin, but I use black and that green on here for the pants. So it's still using all of the colors in here. That's how I mix that. We can take a mixture of dark green and red and create a darker blue, maroon, which is right there on the shoulder pad. So it's muted. It looks like a brown, looks like a mahogany. So I can probably find that color somewhere, but it was just easier for me to mix. I took some black white to make gray and used the green. You saw me how I did that on Thursday to make that muted green. So I can mute things by adding gray to it or black and white. But it's still that dark green. And then using that dark red, we kind of added some shade into the cracks here to make that red inside the shield to make it look a little bit more separated. And it goes with the model because that's the same red as on the Lizard Man. And then we did some highlighting here, right? We did some highlighting here using that yellow ochre from the rope. So that's how we did that stuff. Here's how we did the tree. Remember, it was black. Now it's kind of a dead yellow. It looks very muted over here. And I still have a lot more work to do on it. This tree is a nightmare to paint. Let me just tell you. And then we have this, and here he is dried up. So that's what that glaze does. Now I can go back in, and if I want, I can add this bright color to it. And because it's still all the same colors we used on the tree, it's not really going to mess it up. I know it looks brighter, but it all seems to go. And then once you start painting all the details around it, it makes this tree a little bit it'll stand out more because of that. So that's mixing. And I didn't see anybody have any questions, so if nobody has anything to add, I can end the class now. Let's see. Oh, right there, right on the music, end of the music. How awesome is that? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for stopping in today and hanging out for the paint along. It is a paint along. All of these classes are paint alongs. I just go through my process of how to do certain things. And if I tell you that I'm mixing colors, or I tell you that I'm blending or glazing, then those techniques, you'll know how I do it. And other people do the same stuff I do. They just take it in a different direction. So a lot of the skills that I show on these classes are used pretty much by everybody. They just use them in different ways than you might think. So mixing, not a big thing, but to make a more cohesive model and to limit your paint purchases, you can do it. Again, Reaper, Vallejo, Army Painter, Games Workshop, all those paint companies, plus there's a lot more out there that do have a large selection of paints, have already done the mixing for you. Your job is to go find out which colors go together. So can you find that muted green between the blue and the orange you're using? Or do you mix it? So thank you for teaching regardless, Chelton. It helps learning from different directions. Anytime, Hecatone, anytime. So that's all I have. And so again, I just want to remind people, next Thursday I am not streaming. So the third class of this month will be on Tuesday, next Tuesday, and we're going to talk about the glazing technique and how to glaze. And the most important thing I can tell you about glazing is that it's different from a wash in the fact that when you wash, you allow the medium or the water to help dictate where the paint flows. In glazing, you want to get rid of that stuff, and you only want to put the paint on where you want it to go, and then as it dries, it lets the color underneath fade in. So we'll talk more about that on Tuesday. Also, I put up another picture for you to use for the future for your stream. Oh, on the slideshow. Awesome. I will go ahead and put that. I will take care of that and get that up there. So for those people that don't know, if you join the Discord, not only do you get access to the university, but if you do anything that you're very proud of and that you've worked so long and hard and you want to show it off, put a picture in the advertisement slideshow section of Discord. I will go ahead and make you a promo slide, and every time I stream, or every time I do these classes, that rolls around and gives you some free advertisement for your Twitch stream if you Twitch stream. So, other than that, like I said, there is no raid tonight, but I will tell you who's on that you might want to follow. And then, with these classes, I try not to get interrupted a lot because it is sort of a tutorial explanation of what I'm doing. But normally I'll answer questions, so you feel free to chat in these things. But some of the people I have on, Spooky Sprinkles is an art crafter person. Good Enough Painting is Good Enough Painting, GoodNufPainting. Looks like he's painting and doing stream raiders. Commander Mittens is on. Steep underscore T is on. Crafts from the Dungeon is a craft person. Hero Zone is doing Dungeons and Dragons if you're into Dungeons and Dragons. If you're looking for miniature painting, I think it's Steep underscore T, Commander Mittens, Good Enough Painting, and I think that's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping in. And I hope to see everybody back on Tuesday for number 3 of gmp201, which is glazing. Have fun, and we'll talk to you soon. Whoops. This is what I want right there. Someday I will get this stuff going.